Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Null News. Now, today we have some really good information, some exciting stuff is happening, and maybe a little bit of sad news. So, let's start with it. I am starting this year by trying to change some stuff up. I have a lot of people that really like what I do here, and I super appreciate all of you. That being said, I'm not sure that what I do works with what social media platforms like Google expect. And so for that, I'm going to try this year to play the YouTube game just a little. Now, what I want from all of you, what I would like from all of you is for you guys to stick around and let me know what you like and what you don't like. I want to hold true to what we do here. I want to dig into the hard topics. But with that, I know that I also have to do some easy topics as well. So bear with me through some of those as I do some really basic stuff. I will also dig into the hard problems as well. I'm not going to, just stop doing those things, and I don't want to lose what we are. Now, that being said, this news segment is the last news segment you are going to see on YouTube. That's I lose more subscribers through this than I gain. And I know that there's a lot of you that really like it. Now, that being said, I'm not stopping doing it. It's just not going to be on the YouTube channel that you've come to love and enjoy. I'm going to do it on my Twitch channel that you can find in the description. But I have also linked another YouTube channel where I'm going to upload. It's called the Null Bites. I'm going to upload each week. I'm going to upload this segment. So it will be there. The news will be there. If you like watching it on YouTube and don't join live, I'm going to make it available there. So it's not all bad. That channel is very, very much autopilot. So don't expect me to necessarily check it a whole lot. I will try to respond to comments and whatnot, but that is the biggest piece of news that I have today. So let me know how you like it. Maybe this is good. Maybe it's bad. But I really would like for all of you to let me know how you're liking it, if it's a good move or whatnot. I'm also streaming quite a bit more. Saturdays, Sundays, and Tuesdays and Thursdays at this point, which is a lot. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep all of that up. Saturdays is a community-sponsored stream. I say sponsored, they're not really paying me, but you guys get to pick what we do, what we try, and I've tried some pretty strange things, like Tailwind, which I find particularly strange. So, feel free to join if you'd like. I see Russell has already joined in on Twitch. So yeah. I've also changed up my stream setup just a little. It's a little weird because I have a camera now in between my streams, so the thing monitoring and the thing we're looking at is a little different. I'm going to try some stuff. Again, please let me know what's working, what's not working, what you like, what you don't like. I'd love all the feedback. And hopefully we make this something a little bit better that appeals to the masses. So for the time being, the news will still happen on Sundays like you've expected from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that won't change for the time being. I am going to change up exactly the format. I want to spend some time talking about some of the things that are happening instead of just covering a huge swath of things that happened in the last week. I want to pull out some things. So for that, the other big change that's going to happen, and we're not doing it fully right now, is things like the Kubernetes release notes will be happening on these stream times. But we'll probably take most of a news segment to just go over the Kubernetes release notes. And I might even make a video out of that stream of like the highlights of things that people really liked. The Go release notes, Go 120 was just released. Rust 147, 146 was just released. 1 second. Let me pull that tab up. Let me find that tab. And I want to spend the time that they deserve to actually talk about the subjects. Again, let me know if this is a good change or if you prefer it the way that it was going. I'm trying some stuff here, and some of that will require some patience on your guys' part. Here you can see this is the Null bytes. You can expect these videos 167. Russell knew it. I almost said Russ because it was like Rust and Russell mixed together, came out with Russ. Russell knew what it was, 167, the new Rust one. But I want to be up on those and be talking about their impacts and doing some more of those things. Anyways, the news segments once a week will be uploaded here. We might also do some clips here if I get the time. I doubt I get the time because I'm doing so much with it. But if I do get the time, I will be putting some of those up here. So those links are in the description. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Join the Discord. Feel free to tell me you don't think that you'll like the change. I am trying to make it better. So, all right, with that out of the way, I might also change my. This is like my old Twitch account. I've had it for a while, so it's kind of a silly name. I might change it, and if I do, I'll leave a comment in this video with the updated name. I'm thinking about changing it something to like Into the Null or something like that. I was gonna change it to the Null channel, but then it's like it is a channel, so that seems really redundant. But I'm really bad at naming, so we'll see what it is. We'll see what it is. All right, today we're gonna start somewhat similar. We're gonna do it a little bit the same, just as a throwback to the old days, to the old. We're going to start with security. Ooh, look at that. I have the desktop. I have the Null News. I'm going to make somebody sick doing that. All right. All right. So spotting the all Google phone with a non-Google bug. This was a really interesting article to read, and I found it really interesting being part of the GitHub security blog, but I also really thought that it was a great article to go through just from the effects of a single chip on a board. So basically, there's one non-Google chip that ended up having a severe security that in the end Google said that they wouldn't fix. The Null stream. That sounds like I'm taking a whiz. But yeah, honestly, if I followed my YouTube, which is the Null channel, which is a YouTube channel, I would call it the Null stream because that's the stream. I'm horrible at naming. I wonder how I got so far in my career in software being so bad at naming. It's like one of the things anyways. It was really good. I liked all of this because it went into depth on a lot of the vulnerability. So there's actually 2 blogs about it. This is like the original one, and then this is the follow-up of how it got fixed and what it took to get fixed, because like Google said they wouldn't fix it since it was in the Mali GPU. They fixed it, but then the Pixel didn't announce that they fixed it. The CVE that covered the bug wasn't actually in the release. And so this is just them tracking it and what the bug was, how the vulnerability worked, which had code and a proof of concept, which I think these are really good. So if you're wanting to get into, some of this type of stuff, vulnerabilities, and trying to find them and prove them, this was a really good blog on doing that. And I think that I thought it was good. I am not good at this, so like I'm no expert on this. I do enjoy reading these though because I learn something every single time, and I think it makes me a little bit of a better programmer. We'll find out. On that security, there's a little bit more drama going around LastPass. We can talk about LastPass, but needless to say, they handled everything terribly. The company is having problems. That being said, I have said that I like Bitwarden. I've never had a problem with them. If people want to know, the big deal with LastPass that's really come up is, you know how I was saying like, oh, you should reset your passwords anyways, even though they never said anything about you should reset your passwords or anything like that. Well, the fact is they knew you should do stuff, and they were kind of covering it up. The more information was, it wasn't that they just didn't know. It was more that they knew and they were trying to handle things without actually admitting to it. It was pretty bad. It really their parent company, which used to be LogMeIn, which is now GoTo, it really shows bad on them because security is the one thing that you need to just handle correctly. You have your customers' data. Anyways, this was an interesting article. I like Bitwarden. They've never failed me so far, but this calls to light that they're not quite up to snuff on their iterations. So they have increased to their client-side iterations to 350,000, but a couple days after that, it's now been upped to 600,000. So they were only doing 100,000 iterations. They upped it, and then a few days after that, the OWASP, which is kind of in charge of making recommendations for what the current security is, more than doubled their recommendation. So this is not horrible. Again, they upped it to the recommendations of the time at that time, and now the OWSAP has updated. The other concern that we have here is this is only for new accounts. It looks like the older accounts. I've actually emailed Bitwarden because I am a paying customer of theirs to see, if you can get your account migrated and updated. I will let you guys know if they contact me back, because really there should be an upgrade path to the higher iterations. I've also asked for a statement on if they have plans on making the 600,000 iterations anytime soon. So I'll keep you updated. They have not been hacked, though. These types of things are more if they accidentally do get hacked. But I'm glad for this person who actually has called that out. So that was pretty good. And that was it for my security. Another thing that I'd like to start implementing on these streams is the community's input. So I want you guys to bring articles. I want you to post them in the stream. You can post them in Discord ahead of time if you like. We have a news channel for you to post, which sometimes gets more pictures in it than more memes in it than it does anything else. But I want you guys to feel I want to do some more with the community. So if you found something that happened and it relates to the cloud, software engineering tangentially, go ahead and post it. We can talk about it. I won't necessarily have necessarily planned on anything to say about it, but we can talk about it and yeah, try to understand it together. All right, so let's talk about the cloud news. We are going to change it up. We're going to start with GitHub. They have something that's going to hugely affect a lot of people like me who make their money on GitHub. I don't make any money on GitHub, so that was mostly a lie. GitHub sponsors will stop supporting PayPal. So if you were looking to support somebody with GitHub sponsors with PayPal, you're going to have to stop. Now, this was kind of I am not entirely sure why. They didn't go into details. And I know that PayPal's always in some sort of controversy. But yeah. They didn't really go into it. It's just not going to happen. February 2023. So they announced it in January in a month. So anyways, if that was you, it's not going to be supported anymore. So, go support your favorite open source project. Do it. API for reverting a pull request. Okay, so this was pretty cool. I like this. The API of GitHub is always expanding, and the more that they expose, the more different tools can do. So I think this opens the possibility for some things. A GraphQL mutation is now available for reverting a pull request, a merged pull request. So it's going to allow you to revert a pull request. I think that this is really cool. And I think that there's some automation things that could be done. Especially why I like this is the implications that this has for things like GitOps. You guys know that I love GitOps, and one of the cool things about GitOps is rolling back a deployment can be as easy as reverting a pull request or reverting the last merge, which should be a pull request. And so I think this looks like it could empower GitOps style systems to roll back and things like that. So anyways, I thought it was bigger than it might have seemed. It seemed like, oh yeah, they added the ability to revert a pull request. I think it could be bigger than that. I think that there's possibilities there. So anyways, yeah. What do you guys think? Now we're going to move on to Azure. Azure had one big thing. I didn't see any real newsworthy things that they released or things like that. The one big thing that they did have was this. They had a massive outage. Azure had a massive outage. Teams had a massive outage. Outlook had a massive outage. It wasn't an outage. Russell knew where I was going. And this all boiled down to a misconfiguration in WAN. And also points to how important configuration is. Now, I think they actually did a fairly good job with very little information. So basically what I mean by that is they didn't release a whole lot of information, but they did give enough. They did give enough of what went wrong and why. Again, this is not Cloudflare level of in-depth, which I love Cloudflare's level of in-depth, but it did actually say what happened. The command that caused this issue has different behaviors on different network devices, and the command had not been vetted using our full qualification process on the router on which it was executed. So basically, a new style of router didn't handle the command as well. Then they go into their response, and then they said, how are we making the incidents like this less likely or less impactful? So they are creating some new guidelines, safe change guidelines, with an estimation date of when that's going to be completed. They have one thing that's already done. We blocked highly impactful commands from getting executed on devices. So again, I think that this is like a really good standard of the minimum. It's not a Cloudflare level, and that's fine. If you've had an incident, I think you can take this as the minimum of what you need. It's straight, it's succinct, it's to the point. Now, I would have preferred a link with like, you can read more about what the command was doing, but they don't do that, and that's fine. You don't have to have it. This was good enough. I liked it. I prefer Cloudflare's, of course, but all right. I have a couple other articles just going over it. Not really anything that useful. I don't know if I should collect these other articles. I read some other people's thoughts on it. They weren't really that interesting. So we'll move on to AWS. AWS didn't have a whole lot going on. There was one thing that I saw kind of interesting. If you guys have ever tried to make AWS's pricing calculator is both fantastic and horrible. A lot of the times, I want a quick estimate. I want to give, somebody's like asking for a quick estimate, and AWS's pricing calculator is so powerful, it's not useful sometimes. So this new update is this. AWS announces access of simple monthly calculator estimates in the AWS pricing page. And this is going to make some of this a little bit simpler. It estimates some of the stuff, and it makes it's combining the simple monthly calculator and the AWS pricing calculator. The simple monthly calculator kind of was kind of deprecated in the face of the AWS pricing calculator, but if you had these, you couldn't use them anymore, and it's allowing you to convert them in and giving you estimates to the AWS pricing calculator that are comparable. So I think this is really good, bringing people forward, but hopefully also simplifying some of the things as well. Google Cloud had a couple of things. So the biggest thing that I see here is Anthos. This is the big deal right here. Let's make it nice and... Whoa, that was too big. This right here, starting with Anthos version 1.14. So Anthos is their big... We'll make multi-cloud as well as... I said multi-cloud as well as service mesh easy. With this, they have finally put out like a support matrix for it. So Google supports each Anthos minor version for 12 months after the initial release of the minor version or until the release of the third subsequent minor version. This is actually, if this sounds familiar, this follows Kubernetes, which then, if that sounds familiar, is what Istio does. So obviously, they're still using Istio in the back end of Anthos, or I think that this gives good ties that they probably do, and they're kind of following the Kubernetes release pattern here. So Kubernetes does 3 releases a year now, and they're supported for 1 year or 3 releases of Kubernetes. So I think this makes sense. But it's a good thing because they're actually giving full support. Something that Google doesn't always do. They don't always do this, and sometimes they just deprecate something right out from underneath you or just remove it. With that, Anthos 1.14 is out and provides a policy controller. So basically, there was a lot of updates to Anthos. We could check out the Anthos. I wasn't prepared to talk about it, but these are some of the things that I would actually like to go into, like what does Anthos 1.14 actually bring? What does Istio's new versions bring? Istio has been doing some pretty cool stuff and is easier to use, although service mesh, I think, is mostly overused. Other than that, this is something they've been doing. They've been adding new direct events from EventArc. So go ahead and check that out. They have a bunch of new ones. Their Zero Trust Beyond Corp is getting EventArc. Their API Gateway, Apogee. A lot of new events are now supported, so this is really good. This is, I want to say a month ago, they also released a bunch of new direct events for EventArc, so it's pretty cool. Mfit is something I know nothing about, but it has the word Apache, so I'm JBoss and Apache, which means this has something to do with running Java, I'm pretty sure. But that's all I can tell you. If you're Java, if you're a JBoss or an Apache person and Mfit is fantastic, well, there you go. That's all I can say about it. And that's all I had for the cloud. Did anybody see anything else for the clouds that was a big deal this last week? I'm going to challenge you guys to bring at least one link for us to do. At the end, we'll cover the community section. I'll coalesce. I will collect. I will compact. And we'll go over all of the things that the community has brought at the end. I think that will be a fun little way of doing it. We'll also start up next week. We're going to start up doing the open source projects again. And I'm working on how we're going to do that. But now it's time to talk about some other random things that are happening in the community. Yeah, it's earnings season, and Microsoft did do okay. This would have been a great article to bring up, Russell. They did fine. I don't think they did. They did. I think it was the outlook that was more gloomy. But I think that uh, they did okay. It wasn't a travesty. It wasn't a bloodbath. It was. This is kind of what we expected. Slowing down some. I think all the clouds will see cloud growth slowage. I think one of the easy things, it's not even that they're not getting new customers like they were. I think one of the things is a lot of companies are going through belt tightening, making sure you're deleting the resources that you have and don't need anymore. And that's just going to, if every single company does that, you're going to see an overall slowdown just because some people are spending a little bit less than what they were. Amazon and Google to report next week. So we should cover that next week. Let's put that on the docket. We'll have a little thing to go over the earnings of all of them. I'll try to compile some of that down to give like an overview. These are some of the like highly specific things that I would like to start giving a very specific overview of, so that we can kind of cover some things in depth, instead of just a wide overview of everything. That was kind of the idea. And hopefully this makes it more accessible to more people, and we'll see. I missed one security thing, but that's okay. That's okay. We have a couple open source things. We have some good things to talk about. All right. Let's jump into it. Rust blog. Rust is officially announcing the types team. If you don't know what this means, it might blow your mind that Rust doesn't actually have an official spec for their types. Yeah, so it's been that the Rust C, the compiler, is so tightly integrated in with Rust that there's never been an official spec. And so the team is actually looking to rectify this. This means that somebody else could create their own Rust compiler. Obviously you could, but if there's no spec, there's no thing that you're shooting towards. There is just, you could make it look like the other compiler. So they're looking to actually finalize that, to actually make a spec. So there's a new team that's forming around this to actually define what their spec is. Now you can go and read this. I have read that. They're basically giving you the history of why they don't have an official spec. But it does hurt the team, or it hurts the project a little bit. Now, it allowed them to move very quickly, and so there were some good reasons to do it too. But as Rust is maturing, a spec, I think, is actually pretty good. So it's also going to help with things like this. This is what I wanted to point out. Where you want to actually add on, if you actually have a well-formatted spec, it's actually easier to understand how that affects the spec. Now, the thing that I wanted to say is, I think their proposal, let's see. To conclude, let's pull up this onto a roadmap. As always, goals are best when they are specific, measurable, and time-bound. I wanted to pull this up so you guys kind of had an understanding of how it's going to go, because it's ending in 2027, and if you see that, you're like, what? Their roadmap is for till 2027, 5 years out? That doesn't make sense. But it does make sense if you actually understand that their goals are actually split up. And yes, I think I agree with Russell. This is going to help the GCC version. But they've split their goals up into 4 stages. One of the summer of 2023, the end of year 2023, the end of year 2024, and the end of year 2027. So they have a couple goals really soon. And you know what? I suspect there'll be a few things in between 2024 and 2027. I suspect. But they broke these into the things. So the work in progress with the new trait solver should be testable. They're looking to add this to the test suite. So just some, and then some stabilization. At the end of 2023. So this is what's coming in this summer. Some stability and testing. They're looking at the end of this year is a new trait solver replaces part of the existing trait solver. But this isn't going to be used everywhere. They're going to have an onboarding plan for the team. So they're building a new team to do this. They're going to have to they're going to have to create their own onboarding. If you have an open source project, this is so good to see. This is so good to see, because what I have to say is if you have an open source project and you don't have an onboarding plan, then you have no way for people that are interested in helping to actually start helping. So if you're really wanting to do that, this is super important. And so I love to see that it's part of their goals for their new team to have an onboarding plan. So this is going to be an onboarding plan for the team and documentation of the new trait solver. Okay. So then what do we expect in 2024? We're going to see a new trait solver shared by Rust C and the Rust Analyzer. This is amazing. So Rust C, the compiler, and Rust Analyzer. Rust Analyzer is the code plugin so that you can get stuff inside of like things like Visual Studio Code, the language server. That's what it is, language server. It's the language server that's powering those things. And it's going to share the same one, which is going to make it even better. So they're going to have a clean API for extendable trait errors. And then they're going to have shiny features. I actually don't know what this is in a usable state. I need to look this up. I didn't get quite to it. So I don't know the effects that this is going to have, but it's in the shiny features. End of year 2024. It's still 2 years out. So I have plenty of time to actually know what this is. Obviously, it has to be kind of big if it's in a 2-year statement. So yeah. And so yeah, this is what they're looking forward to. So I think that in some of the next ones, we're actually going to dig into these and understand those a little bit better in these news segments when we don't have anything else. I'm going to have like a backup news segment of things that we can investigate and talk about how they're going to affect us in the future. And these are some of those things. Like what is the implied trait or impl trait doing here? Sorry, I read implied here and then impl, and yeah, this is actually something I think could be really cool. We'll talk about it. I actually think this is one of those features that could be really abused or really cool, one or the other. Probably both. It's like overloading in C++. Super cool when you can make like a math library that can make sense, like you can do addition and multiplication, but then super abused in everything else. So yeah. And then 2027 is unsound issues resolved with types. Most language extensions are easy to do. Large extensions are feasible. And then the AMIR formality passes 99.9% of Rust test suite. So basically, their type spec is going to be fully testable at that time. So I think this is really cool for the Rust language. I really do. Next week, as long as we don't have too much to go over in the news, I'm planning on talking about Go languages 118, 119, and 120 next week. So why having all three of those? Well, I think all three of them are super important. I actually think 118 and 120 are some of the biggest ones to talk about. Basically, 119 tried to solve a lot of the problems in 118. And 118 was a pretty rough release. And like they released generics in 118, and those generics were basically unusable from performance penalties, and it was kind of buggy. 120 119 and was kind of fixing those, and then 120 was really the polish on those. So I'm going to cover all of them. We're going to hit the highlights, and we're going to look at like what's next in Go language. So you can expect a full breakdown on that. After that, we're going to the next one on that list is going over Rust 167, but we're also going to probably pick out the last few releases of Rust. I know I have covered some of them, but I've never gone in depth, which is what I plan on doing in the future. So if you like that, please let me know, and we'll get into a little more in depth than what I'm actually doing here. This was kind of a high level overview. We're trying some things. Let me know how they go. All right. This is something written up by Popular Mechanics. I wanted to talk about. Popular Mechanics said, humanity may reach singularity within just 7 years. Now, if you guys don't know what singularity is when they're talking about this is basically when machines make themselves smarter. So they start adding features and they start doing things that we never even thought of. And the reason I bring this up is I don't think these people that made this understand our algorithms, our things that are actually doing this. Now, maybe in 7 years, we create a quantum computer and something completely different from what we have currently. But from reading this, it was all about what we currently have and the progress we're making on what we currently have. And what we currently have will never reach singularity. I can 100% guarantee you that. Actually, I would argue that our AIs are going to get dumber in the near future. And the reason is there's going to actually be more AI generated information than there is going to be human generated information. And if they accidentally train on AI generated information, they could actually see regressions and stuff. I remember back in .NET 2 when C# got generics. You know what, Russell? Bring up releases of .NET .NET Core. It's an open source framework, and I actually think that they do a lot of really cool stuff in .NET Core. I think it's worth covering at some level. If we do like a quarter of an episode on the new release of .NET Core, I think that would be great. I'm not an expert on it, but I can learn some stuff, and I can talk to you guys about it, and that would be great. But yeah, I feel like this is another reason I don't do well on these platforms is I'm not a sensationalist. I try to look at things rationally, and I actually understand, you know, like a lot of, and there's actually better algorithms, but like a lot of what we have for machine learning is built on things like linear regression, which is statistics, which means we make a really good guess at what you're wanting. And they're getting really good at making a really good guess from the things that we have, from all of the stuff that we've trained on. And I think they're really useful in that. If you wanted an AI for predicting housing crashes and house prices, I think they could get really good at that. Nothing we have does this. Nothing. Not one thing that we've developed. Now, again, if you're saying that we end up inventing a new tech that does that, well, great. The coolest thing that I've seen that AIs have done is they effectively created what looked like would be a good vaccine, even though it's just been running simulations. But that's only on the past knowledge of what vaccines have been created and how they worked and how they were effective. It wasn't actually inventing something new. It was just statistical analysis. Again, really cool statistical analysis. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I just feel like this is leading people astray. This is what got... the reason I'm harping on this is what got people into investing a ton in cryptocurrencies and bitcoins, is people saying this. People doing this and sensationalizing this. And I feel like for what I can do, I need to make a stand when I can, when I'm knowledgeable on this. And am I an expert on machine learning? I'll be the first to say no. Do I have books on it? Have I read those books? Yes. Do I know some of the math behind it? Yes. Do I want to learn some more on it? Absolutely. Every start of winter, then. You killed me, Russell. You killed me. Also, thank you for your support. Okay. Let's move on to some other stuff. I have a question. Would you guys all like to do another book club? I had the last time we did quite possibly my favorite book, designing data intensive applications. And you know what? I'm going to ask again at the start of next news stream next week. Designing Data Intensive Applications by Martin Klapman. It's probably my favorite book. Hands down, probably my favorite book. And if you haven't read it, you should go buy it and read it. It was really good initially, and then like the last 3 chapters, nobody joined except for me. So I don't know if you guys would like to do another one. I have a book that I'd like to read myself. I haven't read it. I think that it would be good, especially in an economy downturn. You guys are wanting to know how to better interview. And for me, I think this one looks good. So I have this here that I want to get. The System Design Interview. And it's a 2-part book. 2 books. I didn't know if you guys would like to do that with me. If you would like to do that and think that that would be nice, well, I'm getting the book. Let me know. And we can do it together. So yeah, let me know. Let me know. I was just a PSA. I'll ask again next stream. Yeah. Yeah, the .NET major release schedule. We could do the minor releases too, if there's something big, if there's something really, really groundbreaking. But yeah, I think that actually works out really well. I'm not a big .NET Core person, but I would like to like go over some of the cool features. I know some people that really like .NET Core, think that it's really fantastic and like the way to build microservices. I also know some people that think it's absolutely not the way to build microservices. So, but anyways, I'm happy to like cover that because I think that's a lot of people, and I'm trying to make this available to a lot of people. So, absolutely, at least the major releases. But if a minor release comes up with something interesting, we should cover it. Has anybody here used Microsoft, Google Flutter? So Google Flutter, if you guys don't know what it is, Google Flutter is Google's cross multi-platform mobile app, web and desktop platform. I've never used it, but it came out with something that made me really, really interested in it. It released a Flutter Forward event. This right here. This Flutter Forward event, as you can see, it's fluttering forward. And is it the Holo booth that I'm talking about? No, it's not the Holo booth. What is it? It is the support for WebAssembly and RISC-V. Yeah. Yeah. Now this is a WebAssembly. This is a web platform I can start getting up behind. Now, I don't know a whole lot about it. Google's director of project for UI and UX and the Dart programming language. I hate Dart, by the way. I hate Dart with a passion. Google should stop making languages. It's not their forte. And they're forcing their crappy languages on us. But yeah, it's getting RISC-V and WebAssembly. Has anybody used Flutter? I would like to know. Right. It's basically Xamarin by Google. That's my understanding. Where is Xamarin, by the way? Did it die? Did Xamarin die? Is it still a thing? I think Microsoft bought it, right? It's still alive, unfortunately. You know, I love the idea of something that allows you to build applications generically and support them across platforms. The problem is, and this is the problem every single time, every single one that I see, it works crappily on every single platform. We'll even talk about AWS. Their app, their Amazon app, that all of their Amazon apps sucked for the longest time on mobile. And that was because they were a web app that was just an application package for an app. And the biggest problem is they don't function like a native app. They don't have the same concepts and the same navigation and all those types of things that make a native app a native app. And then on top of that, they had weird glitches. Now, the AWS ones have gotten way better, or the Amazon ones have gotten way better, but I still notice that they're not an actual native application. And so I think like that's my biggest problem with these projects. Yeah, you looked at Flutter early on and decided no. We then pulled the app idea all together too. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. All right. This might. You have mates who were mobile native devs and were made to use Xamarin. They absolutely hated it. It was like working on a platform with one arm tied behind your back. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's the fault of the people that are making things like Xamarin and Flutter. I feel like, unfortunately, it's the nature of what they're trying to do. You don't get the native SDKs that are made with the platform, and if you do, you have to make something that generic that works on all 6 of the platforms. It has to work on BlackBerry. It has to work on iPhone. It has to work on web. It has to work on. So then, to make one feature like Bluetooth, you got to make that across all the platforms and support it on all the platforms. And then you make a UI thing. Anyways, this is where it spirals out of control. I'm not blaming the people that make these. I like the concept. Again, I think it's a great concept. It just never works out well. All right, this probably should have been part of security, but I think everybody on this stream should read this. It comes from the NSA, which is the United States National Security Agency, and it released a pretty short paper on the guidelines of IPv6 security guidance. So we're kind of in this weird state where we haven't had IPv5 because that sucked. IPv6 is here to save us from the failures of IPv4, but IPv6 also has some of its own roughness. So like we're kind of in a weird state where we need to switch, but we haven't yet switched. And so I think everybody should. I love the length of this. It's 7 pages long, and it gives some fairly good recommendations for IPv6 and some of the configurations that you're going to want to look into. So, auto configuration. Stateless address auto configuration is an automatic method to self-assign an IPv6 address to a host. So, this is some of the DNS that we've had. This is really cool because it actually starts getting you used to some of the IPv6 terminology and things like that. It also maps it back to IPv4 concepts for you. So they talk about dual stack. A dual stack environment exists when devices run both IPv4 and IPv6 protocols simultaneously. So this is the preferred method for it. I actually didn't realize this. I thought that they would have pushed for an IPv6 pure environment. They do say that this can be more expensive and tends to increase the attack surface. I think the reason, I think if I had to guess, the reason IPv6 has been around for so long and still not fully adopted is IPv6 sucks in two regards. One, it's not easily human readable. So IPv6 is IPv4. You can look at it and you can actually tell things about it. You can tell what subnet it is. It's really easy to say this is on a different network and this is, isolated at this. IPv6 isn't. Not only is it not easy to read human-wise, it's actually not easy to read machine-wise either. Have you tried to have a machine parse an IPv6 address and give you useful information? Sure, you can know what device it was manufactured or who manufactured the device, but that's not necessarily everything that you need to know as a human. I think this is actually the two big things that keep it from. We mitigated the problems with IPv4. IPv4 has problems, but we've mitigated it through natting and things like that. And it's easier to handle natting than it is IPv6. I think probably I need to do a whole introduction to IPv6. Actually, that's a really good class to do, like a 5-part section of introduction to IPv6. I'll put that at the end of this year. I think that's actually really good. But I think that's actually what's holding it back. I thought about making the Null cloud IPv6, and then I was like, no, that's actually more work. Not all switches handle it well. Mine do, because I use Ubiquiti, which is a pretty good company, which does, I have prosumer hardware in there. But it's not that easy. An intro to tech no one wants, part 1 of 5. I am not making an HTML, JavaScript, CSS class, Russell. So I can't do the intro to tech no one wants class. Thank you very much. All right, so I think this is really, really good. It's a good introduction to it. I think IPv6, unfortunately, is a must-have in the future. And this is the other thing that I wanted to point out. I actually clicked around on some of these, and some of these were really good information. So like you can go to some of these and look at them and get some pretty good information. So they did a good job of citing their sources. So while this is an overview, the overview has really well cited sources. Did I just offend a bunch of JavaScript developers? I'm sorry. You know that we all joke around here. We love you too, JavaScript developers. We love you because if it wasn't for you, we'd have to be writing JavaScript. So I really do love you, JavaScript developers. If it wasn't for you, I'd be doing that job. All right, let's move on to this. I think this is a bad move. I think this Alphabet investor doesn't know the company that they're investing in. I honestly do think this. Apple. Ugh. If you're investing in Alphabet or Google, effectively, the fact is, Google doesn't do anything particularly amazing. They have a search that's really good. Don't get me wrong. But that search that is really good is built by those engineers. The fact is, those engineers are paid as much as they are because they don't want them to go to another company to implement a better search or just as good of search. I think Alphabet cutting more jobs and halving the pay of not their executive. This is not addressing their executives, of their jobs. of their people making that much is probably a bad move for Google. So hopefully this Alphabet investor learns their company a little bit better. Because I don't know that they know it very well. Let's move on to a little happier topic. Wait. IPv6 adoption up there. Fusion reactors are almost there. Will we get IPv6 before or after mainstream quantum computing? That is the question we will have to make a prediction about. Which one will hit first? IPv6, quantum computing, fusion reactors. We can't even get regular nuclear reactors. Just the plain old, boring, quantum will land. IPv6, ... Perfect. I think, honestly, it might be IPv7 that gets us to move on. I honestly think the human readability was ignored and is a fatal flaw of IPv6. Human readability, human addressability. They were like, hey, with IPv6, there's no reason to have NATs or different networks anymore. And, well, the fact is there is. And it might be nice. All right. Let's talk about the Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation is very excited to announce the formation of the Open Metaverse Foundation, setting the stage for practical, powerful progress in building an open world, inclusive world of interaction, immersive experiences for all. Now, I have a question here. Who are they going to exclude to include? That's the real question. I've always found inclusive means excluding somebody. We're going to find out. I also don't know. I mean, are they pulling a Zuckerberg here? I'm just not sure what this. I don't know. I thought this was like an April Fool's joke. Just they didn't wait for April, but it's not an actual April Fool's joke. They're actually going in on it. So yeah, the Linux Foundation. Now this was brought to us by the community. Somebody found this. I was definitely not looking for this. Also, don't buy the Linux Foundation training for Kubernetes. Seriously, don't do that. Here we go, though. They have announced it, the launch of the Open Metaverse Foundation. So, let's jump into a couple open source things that I found. An interesting project. I don't know that it's open source. It's more of a paper with some stuff. It's a research paper. So we'll jump on this. This was released by Microsoft this week. It's pretty cool and pretty terrifying at the same time. Is the Volley? I think they were going off of the Wally. This was done very much by Microsoft's legal team. Like, hey, we want it to be Wally, but can you make it Wally without getting sued? And they were like, yes, we can. We can do Volley. So the Volley. Okay, now I'm getting sued. Is a paper on zero-shot text-to-speech synthesizers. So this actually synthesizes your voice based off of text. So basically, you give it a sample of your voice, and then it can synthesize your voice from text based off of that sample. It's a research paper that you can check out. And there's also all of this overview of the model. So text for synthesis and 3-second enrolled recording. That's another really weird thing, that it only requires 3 seconds of your voice, and supposedly it can do like voice inflection. They have a whole bunch of speech samples that you can test out of like this is the speaker's prompt, this is the ground truth, baseline, and then volley doing it. You should go listen to these. I can't play them on stream because this computer's audio isn't routed there. I don't think that there's any problem with me playing them, but I haven't figured that out yet. That's one of the things I'm going to figure out though. So yeah, I don't know whether to be horrified or excited. We need a word for horrified and excited. Excitified. Right. So it only needs a certain finite number of sounds. That's the interesting part, is how in 3 seconds do you get all those sounds? Because what if the thing I say doesn't have a th or a duh in it? Like, how do you know how I pronounce that? It also does voice inflection. How does it know how I inflect my voice? I mean, I'm a pretty monotone speaker. I get it. So maybe I'm an easy one. But I feel like there are some people who do a lot of different voice actually, I do that too, so never mind. Anyways, it's horrifyingly exciting. And if you're wondering, the paper is open, so you can go look at it. It's just this PDF. I haven't gone through a ton of it. I wanted to like understand a little bit more on how they're doing the audio processing. It's on my to read pile. So they have some of these things, which I know that we're getting into a little bit of audio machine learning. This was actually some of the different transformers that I wasn't particularly interested in using at this point, but maybe I need to be using them. Anyways, so it's pretty cool. It's not actually as long as I expected it to be, but yeah. Horrified Ted? Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to work out a horrified / excited. We're gonna have to work on that. I think that there's a room for making a word here. We'll just have to figure it out, and then we'll print it on a shirt, and we'll make it an actual word. All right, we have the Microsoft Winget CLI. Who knew this existed? Did you guys know that Windows has an official package manager? Did anybody know this existed? I didn't. I'm not a Windows developer. I saw it. I needed to rant about it because everybody's like, oh, Windows doesn't have a package manager. And like, that's what every Mac person tells me, that they get a package manager. And then I'm like, well, Apple doesn't actually have a package manager either. Some person makes the homebrew that everybody uses. Windows actually has a package manager? I didn't know this existed. I'm not going to use it. I'd have to use Windows for more than just editing videos. All right. We've been using on stream ChatGPT to do some pretty fun things. And here is a project that has the algorithms to make a ChatGPT, or to train a ChatGPT. Is that Open Assistant is a project meant to give everyone access to a great chat-based large language model. So basically, I'm not saying that it's as good as ChatGPT, but it's there. It's also trained. But they also have released how they trained it. So all the algorithms for training it are also here. So not only do they have a trained model, but all the algorithms to train are also here. So this is actually really cool. It might be a project that we pull down and dig into a little bit. My biggest problem here is that there's a lot of Python, there's a lot of TypeScript, there's a lot of JavaScript. These are things that I'm really bad at. And Mako, I don't even know what that is. But so we might not help with it, or I might not help with it. Might not be a help, if I tried. But I thought this was pretty cool, especially because we can actually look, they go into the plan and as well as their vision and their data structures that they're using. So I think this could also, if nothing else, be a huge learning and understanding a place. So if you're trying to get into what ChatGPT does and how it does it and those types of things, I think this could be really powerful. Oh no, does corporate laptops support? I feel like corporate laptops should support WinGet if nothing else. Um, I don't know. I didn't know Windows had a. I'm still excited about it, even though I'm not going to use it. I think it's cool. Next time a Mac person says, "Oh, but we have Homebrew," I'm going to be like, "What about WinGet? What about them apples?" I also think PowerShell is also really cool. I don't use PowerShell, but like as far as being way more powerful than Bash, PowerShell is like way objectively way more powerful than Bash. And I think it's pretty cool, but I don't use it. Bash does everything that I need. I generally don't do things in Bash if they require the power of. I think that's the problem with it. If they require the power of a better thing than Bash, then I shouldn't be doing it in Bash anyways. I should be doing it in Python or Choco. I don't know if you're memeing me with that. There was no other. So Windows has package managers. Interesting. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. Remember, I want more community involvement. Remember, this is the last stream on the Null channel. It will be on my Twitch channel, which I think I'm going to be renaming if I come up with a cool name for it. Otherwise, it's linked in the description. And I'll update the description if I do change the channel's name. I'm still thinking on it. But these live ones are going to be on there. And then the Null Bytes channel, I will upload the news. It will be a day late. I'll probably upload it the night afterwards, so you'll get it there a night after. But you'll still have it on YouTube if you like watching them on YouTube later. That's what chocolatey. It is actually a one. It's a real package man. I thought you were memeing. I thought you were trying to like get me. I distrust you too much, Russell. So again, this is all around trying to get this out to as many people interested as possible. I'm going to try to change some stuff up because there's a lot of you that actually watch it. But that's a pretty static number. So I'm going to try to do what I can this next year to actually make it more widely available. And see if we can't bring this to a few more people and see what I can't do. So again, I take all critical comments and criticisms generally pretty well. So please feel free to let me know how I can make it better, how you think that I might be able to make it to a better, wider audience, and we'll do that. I also want to challenge you to bring some of your own articles that you want to talk about. If you found something that you think is interesting to software engineers, bring it. We'll do a thing at the end over the things that people want to talk about. If we want to spend a half an hour at the end talking about something that you guys brought up, great. I'm going to dig deeper into some of these things, and we'll see how it goes. All right, with that, I want everyone to have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic weekend. Not weekend. I said weekend, but I meant week. Have a fantastic week. I hope that your week goes well. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.